My favorite topic on the Sports PSP podcast, Babyface heel. Now, for those who may not know what Babyface heel means in wrestling terminology, Babyface is a good guy, a heel is a bad guy, and a tweener is someone in between Babyface or heel. So I came up with a list of athletes or celebrities or whoever on the Sports PSP podcast, and we're going to decide whether they are a babyface or heel. Now, the first one, champ. I think it's pretty fair to say he is a baby face. Peyton Manning.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
only incident I hold against Peyton Manning, remember the situation when he was at the University of Tennessee. I want to get
Yes.
into the specifics or the details with that the trainer, Jamie Norwright.
Yeah. Yeah.
You aware of that incident, champ?
Yes, I'm aware of that incident. But outside of that,
Outside of that, I say
yeah.
babyface because when I look at Peyton, I love the direct TV commercials. Peyton is comical. I mean, the Manning family. I mean, 5-time league MVP. I mean, you can argue he's definitely a top 4, top 5 greatest quarterback of all time. I think I have Brady, Montana, Mahomes, and I have him at fourth. What I loved about Peyton more than anything, he proved that because we always love that true underdog story, champ, of guys, of athletes who came from impoverished backgrounds and was able to make something out of their careers. Peyton had money, obviously, because of his father playing in the NFL. You do want to kind of hear the story. Or here's someone who came from wealth, who came from affluence, and regardless, still became one of the greatest to ever play the game. That was one of the reasons why Bill Polian decided to draft Peyton Manning over Ryan Leaf because Bill Polian knew that Peyton Manning was a student of the game. Peyton would practice, he worked, he studied hard. People gave him a lot of flack his rookie year for the most interceptions, but the following year he was 13-3. And you, as an offensive genius, Peyton, even though Brady is the GOAT, greatest of all time, Peyton Manning, I think he has the greatest mind of all players in the NFL. I think Peyton has the greatest mind in the NFL in terms of IQ. I mean, Chip, look at his forehead. I mean, his forehead is big as hell. He should have enough knowledge for that forehead to draw up plays, draw up schemes, things of that nature. But of course, the nationwide commercials. He was able to win a Super Bowl in Indianapolis, which we all know that's a basketball town, basketball city. And for him to go to Denver after 4 neck surgeries, I mean 2013 before the Super Bowl, 55 touchdown passes to only 10 interceptions. You surpassed Tom Brady's record for the most passing touchdowns in a regular season. You surpassed Drew Brees' record for the most passing yards by only a yard, and he was able to deliver a Super Bowl in his final year in his NFL career. And when he retired, he had all the passing records, like yards, touchdowns, everything else. Obviously, he was a great big mentor to his brother Eli, the Manning Passing Academy camp. How you're able to help out young quarterbacks, mentor them, show them all the things and what it takes to be a leader and how to be a good quarterback. Babyface.
I agree. Babyface. Look, I remember if you threw the ball for 3,000 yards, that was great. 3,500, that was impeccable. When Peyton Manning came in, we have seen 4,000 yard seasons before, but he made it the norm. He made it the norm. In fact, he threw for damn near 4,000 yards every year he was playing. He made it the norm. And this is look, and the thing is, his first couple years in Indy, he had a healthy balance of the running game and the passing game. So it wasn't just him, throwing the ball in garbage time. He was actually winning. He was winning. And he had a healthy balance between the run game and the passing game early in his career, especially when he had Edgerrin James and Marshall Faulk.
Falk.
So
And then later on,
When he had Edgerrin James and that team was rolling, there was a healthy dose of the running and the passing from 1999 all the way up to 2004, 2005, when Edgerrin James eventually left the team. So there was a healthy balance there. Like I stated, he made 3,000. He made 4,000 yards the norm. He made the fact that
he
if you
made it
throw for
such ease
3,000,
though.
huh?
He did it with such ease though, because he look not people just look at Marvin Harrison, Edgerrin James. Look at other talents he had. He had I think Dallas Clark,
Dallas Clark,
Reggie Wayne, Joseph Adai, Pierre
Jacob Tammy,
Garcon.
Jacob Tammy, uh,
Mm-hmm.
Austin Collie.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a little bit of everybody that he can. I mean, Donald Brown. Remember that?
Yes.
Remember that? You did hot dang it, Donald. But yeah, when he was hot Mike. But yeah, he made 4,000 yards the norm. You had to throw for at least 4,000 yards in order to be considered a great year. It used to be 3,000, maybe even 3,500. But when he made 4,000 the new standard. And when you change the game so much that you make something, remember back when Dan Marino and guys like that was throwing for 4,000 yards, that was considered a milestone. 4,000 yards was considered a milestone, much less 4,500 yards. He made 4,000 yards the norm. 20, 30 touchdowns, the norm. That's how you impact the game. He made audibles, dummy audibles, all of that, the norm. I would have hated to be in the offensive line for Peyton Manning because I was like, look, you got to hike that damn ball. I cannot keep staring down here.
Remember how he yelled at Jeff Saturday on the sideline?
Yeah. I mean, but the
Yeah.
thing is, that's what teammates do. And guess what? Jeff Saturday said it perfectly. We go at each other. We don't go to the press about it. We, we
I just laugh at that incident because again, what I love about Peyton is he's so relatable. I mean, he's the type of person you can hang out, have a beer with,
yeah,
and how you want to learn football, and how I love the Peyton and Eli, the ESPN2 shows. I hope, and they need to start doing more of that, champ, because again, I hope this could be the blueprint to try to convince non-football fans such as myself, you, BRF, and everyone else to try to understand a perspective of watching football. Yeah, it's okay to watch football for other reasons, the celebrities and everything else, the entertainment, but for those who actually want to try to learn football, try listening to people like Peyton Manning or Eli
absolutely,
Manning. Try listening to Tom Brady. Try listening to so many others who've played football or know football, and try to get a perspective, earn a perspective to like form your own opinion if you are interested in it. Now, some people, like for an example, they watch the Super Bowl, they watch football for different reasons. If you're watching the Kansas City Chiefs, other than the Chiefs football team, you're just probably watching it because of Taylor Swift, of course.
probably,
But for those who may not be diehard football fans, but at least willing to try to understand or comprehend football, try listening to people like Peyton Manning.
absolutely. And look, listen and learn. And look, man, Peyton was a baby face all the way, man. You ain't hear him getting it. You ain't hear him getting into trouble a lot. You ain't hear him. Other than that one incident, you really didn't hear a peep out of him as far as trouble was concerned. He was a model citizen. He built hospitals up there in Indianapolis. I remember at one time Indianapolis was a check off game. You picked that damn game when you played Indianapolis, and you checked that right off your schedule because you knew that was going to be a check off game. And if you go back and watch a football life, he said that was his goal to make that game not be a check off game. So that
Mm-hmm.
was great for what he did for that city, for the city of Indianapolis, and then giving the Denver Broncos a Super Bowl after years of not having a quarterback, a stable quarterback in that organization. So you are able to take two teams to a Super Bowl, and not only that, play lights out for both of them. And look, he wasn't just relatable. He wasn't just the guy you could think about having a beer with. Remember at the end of one game, they was asking him about his contract. He said, "Look, man, the only thing I'm worried about is how I'm going to get a Budweiser up in my lip at the end of the game. I'm
Yep.
not worried about that contract." Remember, he was and then at the end of the game, the Super Bowl MVP. He said, "We're going to go have a bunch of Miller Lite. It's all on bond." So, yeah, man, look, that just goes to show you guys, show everybody, man, you can come from wealth, you can come from money, you can come from your father being an all-star quarterback himself because Arch Senior was a Pro Bowler. He was a Pro Bowler. He was just on a bad team with an astronaut as his general manager. So you know that goes to show you why he was. He had an astronaut as his general manager in New Orleans. So I'm just going to be very, very, very honest with you. But that just goes to show you he came in. He was a student of the game. He didn't want to fall into his father's footsteps. He instead of going to Ole Miss, he went to Tennessee. I mean, when he came out, when he first got drafted, he said, "I'm here to play. I'm last on the depth chart at this point." He said it himself. "I'm last on the depth chart." He said it himself. "I plan on coming in, working my way up from the last on the depth chart, and I plan on working hard." And remember what he said when he got paid that $90 million contract. Remember what he said? They said, "Peyton, what you gonna do with that $90 million contract?" Remember what he said? He said, "I'm gonna earn it."
Mm. I'm gonna practice hard. I'm gonna study
Study
hard.
hard.
I'm gonna compete. I'm gonna
Yeah,
bust
he
my
said, "I'm gonna
tail.
earn it," which you don't hear a lot from these players these days. He said the minute that he said, "I'm gonna earn every cent of
All right. Larry Bird, Babyface.
it." Yes.
He was a he was a badass dude. I mean, come on, champ. Dr. J taking a swing at you, man. Dr. J taking a swing at you.
Oh
I
man.
mean, Larry Bird had to get him to his head. You look at Larry Bird, top 10 player of all time. Because again, remember, you even did a video, champ, in which you remember Low on Player's Choice. He said that Larry Bird is not top 10, to which you even fact checked and did homework and research. Because if you look at Larry Bird, 3-time NBA champion, 2-time finals MVP. I mean, he's won the MVP, what, 3 consecutive years?
Three consecutive.
First, yeah, first to do that.
One of the first to do that. I think Bill Russell did that as well. He won 3 years in a row. Um, as
And
far
also Indiana, what he meant for Indiana as far as basketball in general.
Yeah, what he meant to Indiana and Boston. Remember Boston? Look, let's just be quite frankly honest. Yes, as a player, I hated to see Larry Bird walk on the damn court because I'm a Laker fan. He's the epitome of the Celtics, and guess what? I roll with the Lakers at all the time. But at the same time, you can't be biased. You have to give credit where credit due. Larry Bird and Magic was the catalyst that saved the NBA, brought
Yes.
the NBA where it is today. The trash talk, all of that was part of his game. And if you think about what Caitlin Clark means to the W at this point, multiply that times about 100 million, and that's what you'll get when it comes to Larry Bird in the NBA. That's how much he means to the NBA. Remember, back in the 70s, there was no real TV contracts. All the finals were on tape delays. All the players were flying commercial at a certain point. So if you really look at what Caitlin Clark means to the W, that's exactly what Bird and Magic meant to the NBA. When you talk about being a baby face, I'm just gonna be real. He was relatable because he didn't come from money. He was he was just like the everyday guy, except he could play basketball. And he was your everyday guy in terms of not only doing that. Remember the reason why he hurt his back. He was a do-it-yourself type of guy. He was a handyman. He was doing stuff around the house. He was always, mowing his lawn. He was doing stuff that the everyday man was doing, and tried to be as relatable as and he was relatable as possible. But really, And the thing is, he was relatable when he really wasn't trying to be relatable. He
You
was
could just feel it.
he was just
He
feeling.
he. It wasn't just silly. He just didn't give a fuck.
Yeah, he
That
was
was the thing about with Bird. He didn't care whether you liked him or not. He was like, "I'm here. I'm gonna play ball. Nothing else. I'm gonna drink a beer or whatever, and that's
yeah.
about it."
I'm a
And
dip
with
and I'm
Bird,
gonna
he
be
was
all of
cool.
this.
But Bird, he was cool though, and I think it resonates. Champ, sorry to bring in race. I mean, for a white guy like him to be talking the shit like a brother and to be playing ball like a brother, and for him to be smooth with it, that
Yeah.
gives you some kudos points.
Well, not only that, to be honest with you, you got to think about who he was in the damn league with.
Well, obviously,
This
yes,
dude was
that
in the
champ
league with Magic as his counterpart, number one. Then he was in the league with Kareem.
Dr.
Then
J,
Dr. J, Isaiah Thomas.
Thomas,
Then less than a couple years later, you're in the league with Michael Jordan. They called that era in the 80s the golden era of basketball. You had Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson in the same league. And you got to include Isaiah and Dr. J in there as well. Then you had Charles Barkley. He comes in,
Patrick Ewing.
yeah, Patrick Ewing, yeah. So this he was able to come in and do things that, and he wasn't very athletic. He was the guy that came in and he was the lunch pail guy. He was so relatable, man. Like I said, people would if you go back and listen to an interview with Cedric Maxwell, he literally comes out and said, I'll be driving around the city sometime, and I'll see this real long line in this particular neighborhood, and that's everybody lined up to watch Larry Bird mow his grass. That was just it was crazy. It was crazy how that going on. I mean, the way he brought the Sycamores, the Indiana State Sycamores, from obscurity to them going undefeated in his senior year, brought back, brought back, saved not only the NBA but saved college basketball. Remember that game that him and Magic played in to this day.
Indiana State, Michigan State.
Yes, to this day is still the highest rated college basketball game in the history of the league. So they not only saved the NBA, they also saved college basketball because remember back then college basketball was still suffering from the Boston College point shaving scandal back then. So people kind of lost interest in that. So played a part not only saving the NBA but saving college basketball as well. And look, man, trash talk, I love it. You can back it up. It really ain't trash talk. I mean, remember what they used to say, what Byron Scott said. He said, man, Larry Bird would come up here and tell you exactly what he's going to do and then keep on and then do exactly what he said and want nothing that you could do about it. I'll never forget this. I want everybody to go back and watch Lakers versus Celtics, best of enemies. And I never forget he was in the NBA final. I never forget Michael Cooper said Larry Bird bounced the ball up to the line. They was down by 10. And he told Michael Cooper, who was a great defensive player, by the way, one hell of a defensive player, one of the all-time greats for defensive players. He said he bounced that ball up to that damn line. He said, I'm about to get ready to wear your ass out. And he came out there and did everything that he said. And that was just, it was theater with Bird, man. Like I said, and I bleed the purple and gold, but you cannot deny what Bird did for the game, man. Bird, look, for anybody who want to say we're done with the 80s, shame on you. Because you
Or
can't,
the 90s.
or the 90s, because you can't write the history without those guys. Larry Bird, the look, we talk about the Jordans, but I remember, look, I'm going to just be real. At one point, I bought Bird and Magic shoes when I was in grade school. I worked all summer because I wanted to be the retro guy. I bought Bird shoes and I bought Magic shoes. I bought the Converse Weapon Highs. I bought those for myself because I wanted to feel like I was a part of that history when they were in their prime. Those two, Bird and Magic, were the epitome of basketball in the 80s and early 90s. With their faces on the screen, it was theater. And like I stated, Bird, man, look, Bird was amazing, man. Look, I said, look, if I wasn't a diehard Laker fan, I would get a jersey of his. But unfortunately, Mr. Bird, you will never see me with a Larry Bird jersey on, much like you would never see me with a Aints jersey on. So yeah, Mr. Bird is a baby face unequivocally. You can talk about the trash talk. You can talk about a lot of the other stuff. You can talk about how he was able to go to the press conference when he was in the NBA Finals when Isaiah Thomas was under fire for saying some derogatory things about if he was a black player he'd just be just another guy. Remember he rushed to Isaiah's aid and they had a press conference about that.
Dennis Rodman, you mean?
Yeah, Isaiah Thomas and Dennis Rodman. Remember?
Yeah, and do you also remember what Dennis Rodman said about Larry Bird? How if he would play in today's game?
Yeah. So, and he came and he had that press conference and said, "Look, I don't feel any type of ways about it. If I don't feel any type of ways, I don't think anybody else should feel that type of way." So, hey, and he told them in the press conference, hey, we're trying to cover for each other, and that was an extremely good gesture, And look, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, saved the league. So whether people want to acknowledge it or not, surprised you remember that damn video. Damn, you have a good memory. I did that video 3 years ago. I did that video 3 years ago.
That's how I first met you on TikTok. I mean, that's why I wanted to collaborate you, big fella, because you bring a lot of things into context. Because when I was listening to Lowe's take, look, you look at how Larry Bird, how he turned around the Boston Celtics, I think from the first year to the second year, and
Mhm.
how he was able to win championships. Yes, he had great talent around him, and Kevin McHale, the late great Dennis Johnson, Robert Parrish. But at the same time, Bird, he would if he played in today's game, he would average a 30-point triple double. He's capable of doing that. I could see him averaging 30, 10, and 11 because of his shooting ability. He was a great at his prime, at his time, he was a great shooter. He would definitely be great with the mid-range game. And we all know he's a very good three-point shooter. I think he's around 37, 38%. Imagine how he would shoot the three in today's game. He's been in that 50, 40, 90 club. And his passing, his ball handling, his playmaking, with the spacing that the league has nowadays. Now, the only thing that would hurt Bird has been his health. But other than that, Bird in today's game, in his prime,
Hey, I would look if you saw. I would love to see him and Jokic together because remember how him and Bill Walton was able to pass and tee off each other.
yes.
Although Bill Walton was, God rest his soul, was the sixth man off the bench. Remember how
Yes.
they was able to tee off each other and do everything and make some beautiful passes in that '86 team. That was pure theater right there. I would love to have seen Larry Bird with Jokic. But yeah, Larry Bird, undisputed babyface, man. Uh, undisputed babyface. Like I stated, you know, um, hey, trash talk or not, Larry Bird was that deal. You hated as a Laker fan. Look, as a Laker fan, you hated to see him coming because man, you knew he was.
Hmm.
You knew it was trouble.
Now, this one is a really controversial one for Babyface heel.
Okay.
Suge Knight.
You know what? I'm gonna keep my words soft and sweet because I don't want to have to eat them later on. But no, I'm just gonna be tweener. I will say this tweener, and I'll be very very honest. There's a lot of stuff that we saw. There's a lot of stuff that we didn't saw, and and luckily for me, I'm able to do a lot of research, and I'm a sponge for information on my spare time. He was actually trying to make a pension for music, for the music stars. He was actually doing a lot for the whole Mother's Day promotional thing. He did a lot for the community with the Mother's Day situation, and he did a lot for trying to make sure a lot of Look, without Suge, Dre, a lot of the early entrepreneurs, we wouldn't have saw the bigger ones that we end up seeing later on down the line. We wouldn't have been able to see those guys without Suge and Dre. A lot of those big time entrepreneurs that we saw on the music side of things, we wouldn't have saw Master P. We wouldn't have saw Cash Money. We wouldn't have saw Rockefeller. We wouldn't have saw those things because back then people don't understand this, man. Look, back then hip hop was not popular, my friends, among mainstream. They was trying to ban that shit. Hip hop was going before Congress every other day. President Bob Dole, Al Gore, those guys was
Dolores
trying to
Tucker.
get Dolores Tucker. They was trying to get that shit banned. They did not want to hear that, especially when it came to Death Row Records. So the
Dionne
thing is,
Warwick.
yeah, Dion, yes, what's
Remember the
yeah, ooh, that was a real. I would have been scared too because of what she said. And I'm like, no, I'm good on that. So when you can scare those guys straight, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, they was trying to ban hip hop at one point because not just because of Death Row Records, but because of some of the controversial songs that Ice T had put out, which we will not say the name on the air. So yeah, for the music and everything like that, you got to think about this. A lot of people paved the way so that we can do our thing today. And regardless of their tactics at a certain point, you got to just pay homage to what they did. Like I stated, without Suge and those guys doing earlier entrepreneurship, you wouldn't have, a lot of labels wouldn't have been able to take on joint venture as far as hip hop was concerned. Hip hop was not a popular music genre back then. People thought it was a fad. People thought it was a fad. So I will say this: for the things that he did with the music, I will say Tweener. A lot of the other stuff, yeah, but for the things that he did with the music, I will label him a tweener because guess what? Without that back in the day, without him taking the risks that he took back in them days, we wouldn't see a lot of the joint ventures that we see today. That we saw. We saw some rap dynasties, and it started with Death Row. It started with Death Row. And when you think about Death Row, that was a dynasty. And when you think about No Limit, that was a dynasty. When you think about Rockefeller, when you think about Rough Rider, when you think about a lot of those things, and it was a true underdog story, man. Death Row was not a big label. It was a very, very small label. It was a very, very small label. And it produced 6 LPs. And it's a known fact that a if you produce that many hit records on a major, you're considered a genius at a certain point. Now, granted, he did have the motor behind him, that being Dr. Dre, on the business side of it, and trying to get the music where it is today. Like I stated, get for it to get heard on the radio the way it is, and trying to get rappers what they deserve and stuff like that. Now, granted, did he practice what he preached? Not so much, because you hear the horror stories about the money not being divvied up in a certain way. But that's another story for another day. But the thing is, I label him a tweener because of you know a lot of the things that he did in the music business, as far as them taking major companies taking a risk on hip hop. He was one of the main reasons for that. So strictly off of what he did for the music, I label him a tweener. And yeah, man, look, some of those little stories are kind of entertaining. To be honest with you, they're entertaining. I'm not gonna lie, I laughed as a child hearing some of those stories. Now that I'm an adult, they're not so funny because I can just imagine if something like that would have happened to myself. But I'm gonna just be real on the musical side of it. What he was able to do for the music and the fact that we can hear that music to this day, I label him a tweener. Now a lot of the other stuff, yeah, but tweener because of what he did for the music. Like I said, and I'm strictly talking about the music side, and how the way that he was able to get joint venture and stuff like that, and get these major labels to take a risk on hip hop, which paved the way greater greater record labels on down the line. Death Row was the first of many. It was the first of many. When you saw Death Row, then you was able to see Master P. You was able to see that. You was able to see these large hip hop moguls do their thing, and he was the first. He was one of the first. Him Easy, and look, the one that may surprise you is Luther Campbell. He was a hip hop mogul. I know people he doesn't get the credit because of the party music, but he was one of the first guys to have his own record label. Uncle Luke was. So when you think about Luke, when you think about Easy, when you think about Suge Knight, those were one of the first three. Those were three of the first three guys to have their own record labels, to have joint venture power, to have creative control over their records. Those were to own their masters. To own your masters. People was not talking. People in hip hop was not talking about owning their damn masters until Suge Knight. He made it a part of the contract when he was dealing with Jimmy Iovine. He said, "I want to own my masters," and
That's
that's
what
what.
people don't realize about the business, but the brilliant side of Suge. Plus, I say I was leaning towards heel champ, but at the same time, tweener. I mean, Suge. I mean, the brilliant side, but also his journey. How he was a former football player, good one at UNLV. He was a
Yeah,
former bodyguard himself. Remember, he was the bodyguard to Bobby Brown,
yeah,
and obviously his connections into the business. Some people would look at heel because they look at the situation between him and Easy E, and how Dr. Dre was ultimately able to go on to Death Row Records.
yeah,
The Vanilla Ice one, I don't believe Suge Knight held Vanilla Ice over a balcony. I think basically he just punked Vanilla Ice by basically telling him, listen, my client, Mario Lavelle Johnson, Chocolate as he's called, he wrote the songs to Ice Ice Baby as well as other tracks to Vanilla Ice's debut album To the Extreme. And we're gonna make sure that my client and I get paid. And look, Ice to this day, he still hasn't admitted that Chocolate wrote the song. He said he wrote the song. Regardless, he signed.
yeah,
But when I look at Suge Knight, though, he a very big, intimidating dude, though. I mean, 6'3", 330 something pounds. But they also look at the other incidents. You remember Puffy's friend who was at the Death Row Christmas party?
yeah. I was like I said, those were funny back when I was a child, but now not so much because I'm versus
Social
I'm
media.
yeah, I'm 15 years. When I was 15 years old, hearing about that stuff, it's kind of like damn. But now looking back at it, it's just like damn, that was kind of messed up. But look, again, I just like this. I'm like this. For what you did on the music side to let guys be able to make money to this day is something that's timeless. And like I stated, people don't talk about, how him, Jay Prince, and a lot of those other guys who was, gangsters, quote unquote, they were trying to make a better way for hip hop before it went into the streaming industry. They were trying to get a head start back on that back in the 90s. They were trying to get a head start about that. Unfortunately, they were not able to. Unfortunately, a lot of those guys started going to jail, getting busted, stuff like that. But there was rumors about why that happened, which, like I said, I won't say that on the air because I ain't trying to get hit with a defamation because I ain't got no money to get nobody. But there's rumors about why they got busted and stuff like that. But yeah, there was a lot of good things that guys have done in order to contribute to a lot of us getting paid. And guess what? Hey, that has to be taken into consideration with a lot of things. A lot of times you can look, this is before the social media age. So some things I do emphasize some can be greatly exaggerated. I never forget PK Chocolate. He said, look, he never held him over the balcony. He said I was there. He said we showed up with my guy with Suge with a contract, and he said, "Look, either we can sit here for 20 minutes or we could be here all night. One way or another, we got to get this contract signed to get my
You
client."
talking about the Vanilla Ice one?
Yes. So you know,
Yeah,
and
that was yeah, that was the one in which Chocolate, the Death Row Chronicles. I recall Chocolate him
yeah,
saying, "Look, that was the only threatening or intimidating thing that Suge ever said." Even Vanilla Ice, he did ABC Primetime Live.
yeah,
The way he described it was more terrifying, but now all of a sudden it was like more cordial. So
yeah,
I don't understand how Vanilla Ice changed the tune of his story. But either way, Suge Knight stand by his story. The other thing people will say heal Suge Knight, the video of him running over the remember he was driving and he running over somebody,
yeah,
they're gonna look at that. They're gonna
yeah,
look at all the other things. But Suge, I lean towards Tweener
yeah. 20.
because how brilliant he is and how brilliant he is as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, how he was able to get the types of talent, even though he did intimidate them by his presence. Of course, obviously, he's a big man. You're not going to confront Suge. And of course, he has security. But also, too, I'm still laughing at that Dion Warwick story.
Yeah, that was but look, uh,
I mean, look,
it's not surprising because everybody has that one lady in their life or something like that is
no, I'm
they're
not
not
laughing.
gonna
No,
do
obviously that's true, Chip, but it's just out of the way how they characterized it. I mean, obviously you're gonna be scared when an old lady is going to confront you, having the people come over to her place, and for her to be talking about it. I actually
it.
kind of liked how the way Dion handled it. They
Yeah.
even showed up 10 minutes early.
Yeah, they showed up 10 minutes early. And then when she said, "Now I want you to say what you said," and they looking at each other like, "No, I'm good. I'm not saying that. You,
Yeah,
you." So it's kind of like you like so you say, "Okay, so now imagine everybody else today." And then they really thought about and later on, like I stated, Suge Knight said she was absolutely right about what she was saying. But you know, we was young, we trying to make money. We didn't really care about a lot of that.
that was
Just,
a
you know,
part of the rap game,
it
though.
was part of the rap game. So hey, Suge used this size much like Don King uses his hair. So just being real. It Suge uses his size much like how Don King uses his hair. It was a except he was
Kind
a
of like
folk.
how you, just like how you using the Cartman hat.
Yeah. You get it's a but yeah, you can get look. I always say this, man. Look, if you can learn anything from Suge Knight, you can get more with sugar than you ever can with salt. If you can learn anything from Suge, just know that you can get more. You can attract more with sugar than you ever can with salt. Or you can attract more with honey than you ever can with vinegar. If you can learn anything from Suge, learn that because I really because hey, I'm just gonna be real. Hey, when you get a reputation, eventually it trickles down. If you ask me, he's the West Coast version of Dame, except he's not as visible at this point because unfortunately he's incarcerated. But when you really, really think about it, there's a lot of similarities between him and Dame. The rise was quick and the fall was just bad.
Well, I mean, yeah, and then of course the East Coast West Coast war between him and Puffy from Bad Boy. So I mean,
What's so funny about that quote unquote war? I was digging through the archives one day. Like I said, I'm a sponge for information. And they was actually Biggie and Puff was actually at the Murder Was the Case release party. That was what's so funny. I'm like, and
but Snoop was actually tight with Biggie and them, so that's not really that much of a
that
surprise
was
to
what was
me.
so funny about it. I'm like, what the fuck? So y'all, it's kind of like me saying I don't like somebody did there one of my birthdays. I'm like, is y'all motherfuckers really beefing or y'all just playing us at this point?
Well,
But
obviously, it was just for money and
yeah,
marketing and for ratings.
Yeah, but you know, you ask yourself that because what the hell? This is at the height of the beef. This is not. They was at the murder was the case release party. You see the pictures all over, and I went to go make sure it ain't AI because you know how AI is these days. It's probably pull one over your pull a veil over your face. But I tried to look and see. I'm like, wait a minute, what the hell y'all was doing at this party? This is a Death Row album release party. But yeah, it was just like, and you start asking yourself a lot of questions after that. But you know, it's yeah, the East Coast, West Coast rap, boy, that was a real thing. But look, everything, look, people talk about the East Coast, West Coast rap war. Everything was the damn war back then. You had the Monday Night Wars, you had the console wars, you know, the Sega, every damn thing became a war back then. You know, the late show wars, the late night television war, everything was a damn war back then. The only difference is East Coast, West Coast was hip hop and it turned violent a few times. But
Mm-hmm.
other than that, everything back in the 90s, if you really look at it, man, every damn thing was a war. Toy companies was going to damn war with each other, man. It was Toys R Us versus another toy store. It was out of control back in the day.
McDonald's, Burger Kings.
McDonald's versus Burger King. I mean, people was literally making making rap lyrics saying, I like to Whopper, blank the Big Mac. It was literally just like that. It was something or something else. It wasn't what we have nowadays where you can just everybody just want to be cool. It was purely about competition back then. So that's where I think it stemmed from initially, I will say. And look, before people talk about hip hop as the only music genre of music where situations can turn violent, look, man, I just so happen to listen to classical music. Did y'all know that during the premiere of certain classical musics or jazz or certain jazz stars, fights were known to break out backstage?
I had no idea.
Yes, fights were known to break out backstage during the times of early classical music and early jazz. Fights were known to break out backstage. So ain't nothing new up under the sun. We just like to relate to it when it comes to hip hop. You know, just because it's modern day and it's street music. But in the early days of jazz and classical music, premieres and things like that, rival jazz artists and rival classical music artists, they were known to have fights backstage right before premiere happens. So take that into consideration before you want to talk about hip hop and how violent it is. Fights would literally break out backstage when it came to classical music and jazz music career, back jazz music premieres.